Hey book besties, welcome to my February reading wrap up. You guys know the drill. Today we're going to be going through all the books that I read in the month of February. I did an okay-ish job on sticking to my TBR, but for the most part I just wasn't really feeling like picking up the books that I set on my February TBR. Mood reader problems. But I thought we'd go through my February reading stats before I get into the books that I read with my thoughts. So in the month of February, I read 8 books, which equaled to 2,085 pages. 7 of them were fiction and 1 was non-fiction, which you guys know is a very big deal because I don't really read many non-fiction. The last time I would have read non-fiction would have been for uni, and that would have been a textbook. So I don't really count that. And my top 3 genres were romance, contemporary, and young adult. Those were a few of my reading stats for this month. So let's get into the books that I read. There were quite a few books that I liked, some that were disappointing, and one that I absolutely despised, which is going to be really interesting because it's very popular on BookTok. But I also found my new favorite book of 2023 this month as well. I mean, I can't really say that because we're only 2 months into the new year, but still. All right, so first up, we have got The Do-Over by Lynn. I feel like everyone read this book this month because this book is actually set on Valentine's Day. So of course, it just fits the mood when you read it on Valentine's Day, which is exactly what I did. And it was so fun. So in this book, we follow Emily, and Emily has a really bad Valentine's Day. And then she goes to her grandma's house. And then when she wakes up, it's Valentine's Day all over again. So we've got a Groundhog Day time loop situation. And she's got to figure out how the heck to get out of this time loop. One thing that is always consistent in this time loop is her running into this guy named Nick. Honestly, when I was reading this book, I was like, is it going to be really repetitive because it's a time loop situation? But it didn't feel that way at all. I really enjoyed it. But I will say, I feel like if I read this book anytime other than Valentine's Day, it probably wouldn't have hit the same as it did when I read it on Valentine's Day. But this was just such a fun, lighthearted, cutesy book that I really enjoyed and highly recommend. If you guys haven't read this already, please read this next year on Valentine's Day because it is so fun and puts you in such a good mood. I gave this one 4 stars. I also read another Lynn Painter book this month, and that was Better Than the Movies. This book was so good. It has all the cheesy rom-com references, Taylor Swift references. This actually has Taylor Swift references as well, which was so fun. But this is a childhood enemies to lovers. It's also a young adult. Both of those books are young adult. There's no spice. It's just wholesome, cute, fun, lighthearted vibes all around. So this follows Liz and Wes. If you guys have watched the movie The Duff, it's basically The Duff, but a more toned down version of that is the best way that I can explain this book. So Liz and Wes are next door neighbors and have been enemies since they were like 5 years old, and now they're in their senior year of high school, and Liz is obsessed with rom-com movies, and her childhood crush actually moves back into town, and prom is in 2 weeks, and she is wanting her childhood crush to notice her and take her to prom. And the only way that she can really get noticed by him is actually making a deal with Wes for him to kind of introduce the two together, and it kind of goes from there. It is so fun, so adorable. Each chapter actually started with a popular rom-com reference. Like there was one quote from 10 Things I Hate About You, and my reaction, go watch my romance reading vlog because you will see my reaction to it. But overall, this book was just so fun. The only thing I didn't like about it is the really long chapters. The chapters were insanely long, but the story itself was so cute. I'm just very much a short chapter girly. Other than that, really enjoyed it, and I gave this one 4 stars as well. Now this next book is my new favorite rom-com of all time. Love it so much. I will take no slander on this book because this book owns my heart, and that is X's and O's by Amy Lee. I freaking love this book. I could talk about this book forever. So this is the story of Trevor and Tara. Tara is actually a book influencer, and Trevor is her hot firefighter roommate, and Tara is like a hopeless romantic, but her actual love life is very bleak, and she comes up with this idea to basically revisit her past exes and try to come up with her own second chance romance trope, and she ropes Trevor into helping her out. But of course, you know what her trope's gonna be. It's not gonna be second chance romance. It's gonna be slow burn, friends to lovers, roommates, and it is so good. I love this one because Trevor surprised me so much in the sense that he became one of my favorite book boyfriends, and I did not expect it. So that like pleasantly surprised me. He's very anti-romantic, but he knows how much of a hopeless romantic Tara is, to the sweet gestures that he does for her because he knows how much she'd appreciate it. We love a man who knows love languages, like truly. So really enjoyed this book. I cannot recommend this enough for anyone who loves romance and books, and if you're a bookstagrammer, booktoker, booktuber, probably recommend reading this book. This one was an easy 5 stars for me. It was a 5-star prediction and definitely did not let me down. I love this book so much. Then I read Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This is so hyped up on BookTok. It was really popular specifically around like June, July of last year, but I obviously read it quite late. I can kind of see why a lot of people love this book, but for me, it did not hit, and I was quite disappointed, unfortunately. So this one is a childhood friends to lovers and second chance romance. It's got a very summery vibe because we're following these two main characters who've spent like 6 summers together. They have been best friends throughout those 6 summers. So we've got Percy and Sam. So Percy and her parents bought this beach house and they go there every summer, and they are neighbors with Sam and his family, and Percy and Sam immediately strike up a friendship and they are inseparable, bestest of friends ever. But on their very last summer, something goes completely wrong and they end up going 12 years without ever speaking to each other. And then 12 years later, they are forced to see each other again because Sam's mother passed away. So she needs to go back to that little small town to attend the funeral, and you also get to find out obviously what happened between them. And to be fair, the reason as to why they stopped all contact from each other was totally plausible. Like, I will give the book that, but the plot twist just completely ruined it for me, and I found that the ending was so rushed. I was just like, what? Did we already like build up to this moment just for it to be resolved within a couple of pages? No, like I did not like that. And I also feel like Sam deserves so much better. Like, yeah, I did end up giving this one 3 stars though. I don't know if I want to knock it down to 2. I don't know if that's been too harsh. So I'm gonna give this one 3 stars. Then I read The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. This one is a friends to lovers, fake dating, and one of us is famous trope. We follow Bree and Nathan, who have been best friends since they were in high school, and they've both been secretly in love with each other for many years. But obviously both of them don't know that the other has feelings, and they also don't want to risk their friendship, so they've never mentioned any of their feelings at all. But then they actually have to fake date because Bree accidentally spills her guts to a reporter that she's in love with Nathan, and now they've got a fake date for like 4 weeks for publicity. And of course, this is kind of like a little trial run at their relationship. Is it real? Is it fake? That kind of thing. It is just so sweet. I will say Sarah Adams writes one of the best, fluffiest romances ever, because this was so cheesy but so fun and wholesome and cute. The only thing that was really bothering me is that Bree did come off a little bit as a pick-me girl at times, especially like for the first half of the book before they started fake dating. She was definitely giving me pick-me vibes, and I was like, this is kind of giving me the ick. But even still, I really enjoyed the book. I love Nathan. He was such a cute golden retriever kind of guy. He was such a simp for Bree, and I was like, how does this girl not realize that he's in love with her? Like, it's so obvious, but it's so good, especially because you get dual POV and it's so fun. And I loved Nathan's football teammates because he's actually a famous football player. His teammates, I really hope Sarah Adams actually writes a book about them because they were so funny. Like, I need a story about all of them, like, please and thank you. Overall, I rated this one 4 stars. Probably would have gotten a little bit more of a higher rating if Bree wasn't such a pick-me girl. Then I read The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. This is one of my favorite book covers ever. It is so stunning, so beautiful beautiful to look at. I could stare at this book cover literally forever. So this book, I would say if you are a Swiftie, you need to read this book because this has Taylor Swift vibes and so many Taylor Swift references, and the main characters love Taylor Swift. Like, that was one of the reasons besides the cover that made me want to read this book. This book also deals with a lot of grief. So we follow Meredith. She lost her sister Claire years ago, and she has ever since then kind of like shut herself off, and they used to all go on this family vacation with the rest of their extended family to Martha's Vineyard, and they haven't been there in a while, but now they've got to go back because Meredith's cousin is getting married, and they used to have this tradition of playing this game of assassin, and Claire would always win. So Meredith is on this kind of quest to make her sister proud and also like find healing within herself at Martha's Vineyard. And along the way, she has a run-in with the cute groomsmen, and they strike up a like alliance with this game of assassin, but of course they also fall in love as well. And like there's a kind of a scene at the end that kind of connects everything together, and I was like shook. Oh my goodness. There were a few parts of this book that did feel a little bit repetitive, but it was just so fun, and I loved this family. Like, I would want to be in this world with this family because I loved all the family members. The side characters was just so good. Like, literally my heart. So good. So I gave this one 4 stars. Then I read my least favorite book of 2023 so far, and that was To Love Jason Thorne by Ella Mays. I was so disappointed. I am so sad that I didn't like this book. I actually hated this book, to be honest. So this book is a brother's best friend trope. We follow Jason and Olive. They've actually known each other since Olive was, I think, like 8, and she's been in love with Jason ever since. And Jason is Olive's older brother's best friend, and now it's like years later, they're both adults, and Olive has just published her new book and it's been turned into a movie, and Jason is an actor, and turns out he's actually going to be acting in her movie. So they are reunited once again, and they also need to fake date, which also turns into marriage of convenience, which I was not expecting at all. But the main things that really bothered me about this book is, where was the consent? There were 2 scenes in this book where, I don't know, it just, I was like, this is making me feel so uncomfy. The spice was really cringy as well. And also, yeah, there was no consent, which was like really what almost made me DNF this book, but I like pushed through just so I can say that I read it. And I did read it, and I hated it. And also, Jason's nickname for Olive was Little One. He'd been saying that like from page 1 through to the end of the book, and I was like, that was the biggest ick. It was so cringy. And also Olive, I feel like the way that her writing, like her perspective was written in, she still sounded like she was the 8-year-old that was in love with Jason, and I could not take that seriously at all. It just made me feel so uncomfortable. So there were just quite a few things in this book that were absolute misses for me, and I feel like weird though, because I know that this is so hyped up on booktok and it's got good reviews, but unfortunately for me, there were just so many things that I hated and just also was so wrong about this book. I give this 1 star. I would give it 0 stars if I could, but I'm gonna say 1 star. And then for my non-fiction book, I know, who is she? I read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is her memoir. I actually listened to this on audio, and it was amazing because Jeanette McCurdy actually narrated it herself, so it felt so much more personal. And this was such a heartbreaking memoir, and like a lot of the times I had to stop and be like, oh my gosh, this was actually her real life. Especially because I grew up watching iCarly and Sam and Cat, and now reading this as an adult just hits so much. Oh my gosh. So yeah, this was an incredible memoir, and it's made me also want to pick up more like non-fiction reads. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, even though it was like so heartbreaking and sad, but so interesting at the same time. And I don't know if I should be rating this book though, because I feel like it's kind of weird rating autobiographies and memoirs because it's literally someone's life story. But I will say I definitely do recommend this book, especially like if you are a fan of Jeanette McCurdy or if you've heard of her. Alrighty, so that concludes my February reading wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about all the books that I read this month. I feel like we had a really good mix in the sense of we had a non-fiction, we had a 1-star read, a 5-star read, some disappointing reads, some reads that really surprised me. So it was a real mix of a month. If you guys want to see what books I'm hoping to read in March, go check out my March TBR. I posted that one yesterday, and of course I used my TBR jar to help me out. But if you guys enjoyed watching, please give this video a huge thumbs up, subscribe to my channel down below. I post new videos every week, and follow me on all my social medias because I post a ton on there as well. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye.